The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chasers. Now, before I get things started, I got to give a shout out to the members of the Green Gorilla channel, so let me do that now. I want to give a shout out to Ethan Hines, Mr. Lou Meth, Drew Main, Shop Talk Live, Jones Boy, Ryan Jackson, The Face, Mr. Heat, David the Man, Afro Analyst, NEU, Ronan Martin, Black Quizzard, ADOS, Camp Low, Isa Abdul Sahir, Sir Anthony, Deshaun Nolly, Ab Media 83, Aaron Lloyd, Leroy Honeycutt, ML Law, Julius Ferguson. Hold on, man, I lost my place here. Charles Rogers, Black Dog, Brother Love, Infamous Chillin', Universal 178, Black's Word 404, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, See Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, The Nameless Protagonist, Black Pill Ned Stark, Arthur Unknown, Odd Khaled, Roderick Jackson, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Brian Williams, Kalan Jakala, Sherrod Martin, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed. Damn, it's keep making me lose my place. BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, Seven Coast Dojo, WPR1, Roguish the Billmonger, I Care, Forrest Windu, Lady Miss Thing Green, BGS Ibmore, and Marvin Battle Jr. Thank you for being members of the Green Gorilla channel. Your support goes a long way. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank you for each and every one of my members for all of their dedication and support to the channel. I appreciate it. It enables me to enhance the production value of the channel and to provide some resources where I can conduct some research. So thank you. And if you would like to become a member of the Green Gorilla channel, well, here's how. What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless. We're back. I'm the G with a PhD. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. And this is the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. I already did this once, but I feel the need to do it one more time, just in case anybody's, under the illusion that they're watching a child's program. The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. So yeah, every now and then you're going to hear some curse words if I feel like it. It's not like I set out to communicate like that, but every now and then you might hear some curse words. So anyway, man, you know, the last time I was on the show by myself, I gave a presentation on why I felt black liberals, black conservatives, Afrocentrics, members of the black clergy, and black intellectuals were failing the black community. It was a negative project, but it didn't stop there. I mean, because I have a positive part of the program, but I can't speak about every last detail of what I am presenting as a sum total because I have to break things down into segments because a lot of what I talk about is dense and I can't include it all on every program. So, I mean, there were some people who took pause with some of the things that I said. And so I want to, visit that. I want to see if what was said about what I said is out of line. And I'm just going to give my responses to it to you all before I move forward. Okay. Uh, so let's get to it. I'll share the screen and assume that you can see this. So one of the responses was that, and it's a pretty legitimate response, I think. Let me get to it here. And it was by a person by the name of Kim Jones. And so ultimately what I said was that contemporarily, civil rights strategies don't really work as well as they used to because black people are no longer restricted from occupying public spaces, right? And she says, I assume it's a she. I don't know, but I assume that it is. She says, restricted from occupied or occupying public spaces, but that's no longer the case. And she put air quotes there. Not, air, I'm putting the air quotes there, but she put quotes around it. Then she goes on to say redlining, gentrification, Amy Cooper, the bird watcher, white woman blocks black male from entering building, etc., etc. Nope, not over. The movement called Civil Rights Movement removed these restrictions. Then she puts the little icon, the little icon. Okay, so look, here's my response to that. Okay? You're going to, I never said that racism is gone. I never said that for one. And also, I'm not saying that black people from time to time are not going to experience instances in which white people are going to white people. They're going to do it, okay? They're going to engage in racist behavior that's ostentatious from time to time. But ultimately, think about this. The civil rights movement took place at a time when there was de jure, which meaning is de jure by law. By law, black people were not able to occupy public spaces with that of white folks because there was something called segregation. Now, you're going to, from time to time, experience white folks who do some racist things. But for the most part, if they get caught doing that, then guess what you get to do? You get to utilize a civil rights violation law. So if you catch them saying something to you that's racist, you can't come here, nigger, or you can't be in this place, coon, then guess what you get to do? You get to trigger a civil rights violation law, and that person could be fined. They might even face time in jail if they do that openly. So you can't come outright with the racism. So now, I mean, and this just goes to show you how far behind like a lot of black people are right now in relation to the strategy the white folks are using. Everything has become codified. So they don't call black people the N-word anymore. They don't say nigger. They say thug. Or they talk about criminals. They don't talk about the ghetto like they used to. They don't call the ghetto or the black ghetto. They call it an urban environment. They don't talk about not wanting you to be in their school systems anymore. They talk about states' rights. They don't talk about shutting you out of economic opportunities anymore. They talk about, well, let's cut taxes. It's part of what they call the Southern strategy. So they're not going to come forward with open and outright racism anymore. And if they do, you get to trigger a civil rights violation against them. So that's why white folks are scared about being called racist. Not because they're not racist. That's my assumption there. But it's not that they are afraid of, actually being racist. It's they don't want to get caught being racist because there are damages associated with doing so. That's why. That's why you don't see them openly. I mean, here and there from time to time, you will see it. But with the police, it's an entirely different matter altogether. The police are not openly arresting people because they are black. What they're doing is they're using the excuse that they're trying to prevent crime. And it just so happens that black people occupy spaces in which more crime is being committed. That's how they utilize different forms of discrimination that are not openly racist, but they are racist, but not openly so, in order to continue their program of domination and oppression. This should be just commonplace knowledge by now. It should be commonplace knowledge by now. Okay. So, and what I don't want to do is and thank you, Marvin Battle, for the support over the Cash App. And look, I need y'all to support the channel, man. The channel won't support itself. I do the best I can to keep up and continue to provide y'all with quality content. I need for you to, chip in. And again, I do think though, but as the jail says, school choice. They use that. We ought to have choices. They do use that argument as well. And SDJR says it's debatable, but definitely not worth debating whether white people are intentionally racist or if it's some subconscious thing. Look, I personally don't believe that racism is absolutely subconscious. I think it's conscious, but I think that it can also be implicit. It can be conscious and it can be unconscious. The only reason I say that it can be unconscious to some degree is because black people are unconsciously racist against themselves. And if black people are unconsciously racist against themselves, it should be a no-brainer that white people from time to time are going to be racist. Bottom line. Thank you, Sherrod Martin, for that generous support. I appreciate you, my brother. Thank you. So, and the reason I know that black people are racist against themselves, do I have to break out the dial test? I keep talking about the dial test, but the dial test is important because it demonstrates that even at a young age, I'm talking about like as soon as you get past the age of a toddler and you can speak, you understand that there's a difference between white people and black people. Children notice the difference, and they know that they're supposed to be regarded as ugly, unintelligent, pernicious in their character. They know all of that before they begin to matriculate into middle school. They know this by elementary school. Okay? So it's not that this is actually the case that these children are ugly or that they're unintelligent, but this is the messaging that they're receiving from society at large. So if they're receiving this messaging, thank you, TD Hip Hop Media, for becoming a member of the Green Gorilla channel. I appreciate your support. And I do watch your channel, my brother, so it means a lot for you to support me here, man. I appreciate your contribution, brother. I appreciate it. So if it's the case that black people are oftentimes unconsciously biased against themselves, and we can see this with the dial test, then it stands to reason that white people, even so-called well meaning, and I am doing air quotes as I say this, it stands to reason that they would also, to some degree, be unconsciously racist themselves. But I don't really buy the unconscious racist thing all across the board. I believe that there are a lot of white folks who know what the program is. And the program is a contract amongst themselves. And they know that they're part of the contract. They know that they're down with the program. The program is a program in which they continue to maintain dominance over black folks. Bottom line. Or any other group of folks for that matter. They know that they're the in group and they know that there's an out group and they seek to maintain the hierarchy. Okay? So there you go with that. But the reason this is important is black people are going to have to develop different kind of strategies to deal with the way that racism has changed. They're going to have to. And here's my response to Kim. This is what I said. Okay. So we had a little exchange, and I think it's important because I want to clarify, and I think that sometimes going back and forth in the comments will help people to gain some clarification. So here's my response. I said, look, an individual white woman, a random group of white citizens objecting to a single black man or a group of black men in a public space, gated community, or private property does not constitute a formal restriction of blacks from occupying spaces. If anything, in today's climate, such a display of overt discrimination constitutes and triggers a civil rights violation. Do some white people make attempts to self-isolate and to police black people from being where they don't think they belong? Yes. But by and large, blacks are not restricted from going to malls, grocery stores, the movies, public libraries, courthouses, public parks, and public stadiums. Also, black people are not required to go to the back of the bus, stay in all black hotels, or drink at for blacks only water fountains anymore. If a black person was prevented from occupying such spaces or utilizing such public facilities on the grounds of race, they could sue the objector in a civil court and secure a hefty settlement or even provoke a jail sentence. In essence, black people are now typically discriminated against in more subtle and less openly hostile ways than during the civil rights movement. Therefore, blacks will have to develop different strategies for tackling contemporary problems. The perfect case in point is BLM, a movement that has done little next to nothing but prop up a self-appointed leadership class pushing neoliberal and electoral identity politics. And then I go on to say, the civil rights movement was successful because its participants provoked state violence through peaceful protests, which was openly embarrassing to American politicians during the Cold War. Now, the Cold War, if you don't know, was the war between the United States and Russia to maintain preeminence on a global scale to find out which form of economics was going to be the paramount form. Socialism or communism or capitalism and democracy. Okay? So, interest convergence, basically, and the saving face, and what interest convergence is the following. The people in the United States government did not give black people civil rights out of the kindness of their hearts. They only did it because there was an interest in them doing it. Again, you got the Cold War. You got everybody zoned in on the United States looking at what's going on there. Here you have a country that claims to be free and democratic, but they're knocking their citizens upside the head, who also fought in World War I and II and the Korean War, and now they're seeing on a world scale or on the world stage the United States battering, sicking dogs on, gassing their own citizenry. It was embarrassing for them, especially as they're trying to promote to the world the idea of freedom, democracy, and capitalism. It wasn't a good look. So they signed the civil rights legislation and, the Free Housing Act, a whole bunch of other acts. But eventually, and I've talked about this on the channel, those acts were undermined. by all kinds of different movements and all kinds of finagling and maneuver. Again, I don't know exactly how to term it, but the idea here is that these people found ways to wiggle out of the commitments that they made during the civil rights movement. Okay, so the next thing I say is interest convergence and saving face on the world stage was what made white politicians capitulate and sign civil rights legislation. However, civil rights laws are terrible at dealing with collective action problems and disparate impact issues. One of the most difficult things to do legally is to prove that someone committed a hate crime. Bottom line, it's hard to basically prove that somebody committed a hate crime. Okay? That's why we aren't getting anywhere, because the civil rights legislation is predicated upon triggering hate crimes. But how do you know if somebody's hating you, other than for them to openly declare, "I hate you, nigger"? How do you trigger it? You don't. You can't. So this is why we're not even moving forward right now, because we're trying to demonstrate that these people hate us, but at the same time, these people are not openly saying that they're hating us anymore. They're using coded language and a set of discriminatory practices that are, for the most part, clandestine, and we haven't learned at the current moment how to deal with that. That's the problem, okay? And Jones Boy is correct here when he says that Russia called out the U.S. for its hypocrisy and racial terrorism, as well as the UN. So how can so that's the point, okay? That was the point I was making. Now, so I hope that clarifies this person's questions and kind of gets to the root of what it is I was trying to articulate. But then she comes again and says, well, what about redlining, gentrification, and sundown towns? Okay? And I say, look, I've written and published articles about redlining and gentrification, the effects of which are deplorable. But they're not overt forms of discrimination that you can point to an individual actor, a group of actors, and declare a hate crime has been committed or a civil rights violation has taken place. And the same applies to sundown towns, which may carry on the tradition of segregation in a de facto manner, as opposed to a set of formal legal practices, as was the case during segregation. Again, the issue is that we, black people, have been trying to attack these problems through a civil rights framework which is ill-suited for dealing with collective action problems. So in other words, to use a sporting analogy, the game of racism has changed. It's time to make second half adjustments. And it just seems like black folks don't know at the current moment how to make second half adjustments. But we need to. We need to be able to adjust, because oppression, domination, racism, a whole bunch of isms, whatever the case may be, they don't stand still. They morph. They change like viruses. They adapt. And you have to adapt to the adaption. It's like this is like a judo match, a jujitsu match, where one person is trying to use leverage. You figure out how to, finally get out of a hold, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in another hold. This is the game we're in, and we got to learn how to play it as well as they know how to play it. Okay, so that's my concern right there. Okay, so the next comment was by an individual named Anupta. Okay, and Anupta says it's wrong to call the modernization of ancient black culture romanticizing Africa when every other race or color or race of color who we complain about, Chinese, East Indian, Arab, they invest in their own stuff. Their culture comes first. Look at China. They recently built an amusement park with replicas of every ancient monument and temple in Chinese history so that they can pass down their culture to future generations. They have no intentions of letting other races tell them what to do. Okay? And then we had a little exchange back and forth. And then I basically say, look, I preface my statement by saying that black people should study ancient Africa, but we shouldn't be determined by ancient Africa, because ancient Africa is ancient. The Chinese, he just said, build what? An amusement park. What's an amusement park? It's not an ancient edifice. It's not an ancient form of technology. It's a contemporary form of technology. So although they reach back, they utilize what they want, but they don't imitate. They modify. They adapt. They integrate, but they don't imitate. Okay? So, anyway, so that was the exchange. And then there's a guy named Mo Brown who made a comment, and I pretty much echoed it. Look, American blacks, and this is just a fact, you can like it or not. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter. It's the truth. Blacks in America are genetically hybridized, meaning Massa busted it wide open and told to bring it back. This is the facts. You can like it or love it. You can hate it if you don't like it, but it's the truth. That's why we don't look exactly like African people. Some of us do. We bear resemblances to people who are African, but we look even phenotypically different because we've been hybridized. Okay? And we have a syncretic culture. This is a fact. Black people speak English. Not to say that there aren't any African people who don't speak English. There are. Okay? But the reality of the situation is all African Americans typically know how to speak is English. We think like Americans. This is a fact. Now, one could argue we might need to think a little bit differently in the context of our racial situation related to America. But culturally, we're primarily American. Okay? So I say that can't be undone. So I'm being practical here. Black culture cannot be undone without one, a mass exodus or American blacks coming under the control of a powerful, charismatic, or a beneficent dictator who can just all of a sudden change the culture of black folks. Basically, I don't think that's going to happen. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, look, let's be practical. Let's talk about what our situation is really like. Instead of trying to imagine what it could be, let's start where we are. Okay? And I'm not knocking ancient African culture at all. So he says, look, we go on again. I see your point. Let's understand this. Any race who doesn't have a culture to pass on to children will go extinct. It was said that ancient or current African culture is foreign to American blacks. True. Yet this shouldn't be a badge of honor. I think we have a misunderstanding of culture. It's more than just wearing dashikis or clothes. It also serves as an economic base and a reason to buy from each other that inspires black people to create more businesses. Also, black Americans had a culture. The feminist movement could not have gotten to black women so easily if we had one. Okay, I think that's what he's saying. Look at other women of color, Asian women, Eastern Indian women, American Indian women. They all rejected feminism. Now, I don't believe that that's actually true. I don't believe they all rejected feminism. Look at India. Do a research on YouTube for India and feminism and see if it's got there. I'm just saying. There are a whole bunch of East Indian women who are into feminism. Trust and believe it. Okay? But I don't want to digress too far off this. He says they all rejected feminism because they have their own culture, which gave them reasons to not destroy their own family and race. Now, some of their families may be intact. We can go look at the numbers on that, okay? But he goes on to say, without culture, black people have nothing in common and will continue to fail. Look at the recent past, the 1960s and 70s. They started integration, passed the Civil Rights Bill, changed the music on the radio from soul music to disco, just to stop black people from identifying with culture because we were about to develop an independent identity. Do we understand? And then, look, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about and discuss before I move on to what I want to do. But here's my response to that. Okay. Look, I understand your position. Perhaps I was too hasty in responding to your current charge, But please, I want to make something clear before going forward. I think that black people actually should study African culture. I think they should. But I don't think that they should be dominated by it to the extent to where they feel like they have to pattern every little ritual that they practice after it. Okay? So it's just it we just have to realize all of a sudden you're not going to take all the 40 million Negroes and just change their culture overnight and have them utilize African culture and terminology and then all of a sudden come up with, you know, a different value system. It's not going to happen. But what you can do is you can get black people to become more democratic. That's what I think you can do. I think that can happen. Sorry for the phone ringing on me. I think that can happen. Okay. So at any rate, man, all of this is to set up for what else I'm doing. Because I guess some people took pause with my idea that the civil rights movement was over with, which I think it is. I think it's done. They also take pause or umbrage with the idea that I would be critical of Afrocentrism. And I already prefaced my remarks before I even got into it. I said, look, I understand that black people are under attack. I can understand that black people suffer from cultural confusion. I understand that black people are subjected to pernicious forms of racism and that the institutions don't always fit their needs. Even the holidays don't always fit our needs. But at the same time, me learning Swahili, me, practicing Kwanzaa, that's not going to change black people's condition. It's just not going to happen. And I don't feel ashamed to say that. I don't feel afraid to say that. I just think, and show me otherwise. Demonstrate to me otherwise. I think we would do better with dealing with our immediate conditions and the immediate ways in which the system is excluding us. I think we should step up and be more democratic. I think that at this time it would be asking too much for black people to change every aspect of their culture. That's just my viewpoint. And look, don't diss my Amen Friday, man. Don't diss my old my ringtone, man. I did that for reasons that, if I'm taking a call and I'm doing something business wise, I don't need to have some hip hop ringtone playing on my playing on my phone. So at any rate, that's just my assessment, man. So I'm just dealing with these issues. And some people got upset about it. I don't mean to upset people. I'm just trying to deal with the reality of the situation that we're in right here, right now. Okay? Now, so today's show, I said, look, we need a new politics with a new soul. I told you what was wrong with black people in politics. So what I want to do is suggest what the solutions are. So here is my viewpoint on what we need to be doing. So everybody always says, well, you're always being so critical. Well, what's the solution? Well, it's complicated. It's complicated. And look, Mr. Too Opinionated says it's important black know facts about African history. And I think so too. We should study it. We should know it. And we should take ideas and themes from it and utilize it. But think about how white people study philosophy, which is the study, like white people actually study ancient philosophy. They study Aristotle. They study Plato. They study Pythagoras. They study Parmenides, Heraclitus, Xenophanes. They study a whole host of ancient philosophers. But do you see them changing the entirety of their culture while they study it? Do you see them like change the entirety of the way that they operate in the world just by means of studying something ancient? No, they don't. They do not do that. Okay? So that's just my response to that. So what do we do? Where do we go? So let me get rid of this. And let me share another screen. Share my application window. Where do we go from here? I say we need a politics with a new soul. Now that's what I say. So exactly what is it? And this is not scintillating, titillating material. This is slow grind. Okay? But it's important I think it's important. Okay? I really actually think this is important. So again, what I've been doing is I'm advocating for black people to develop innovative ways of dealing with the problems that the black community faces. And basically what I'm insisting is that new problems require new tactical approaches. Right? New tactical approaches to problem solving, and that black political liberals, conservatives, classical romanticists, which is Afrocentrics, preachers, and intellectuals have all failed. Look at where we are. We're no better off than during the civil rights movement. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to lay out or outline two different lines of attack for resolving contemporary black difficulties. Okay? So on the one hand, there's something called a post-soul politics. There is actually an academic term for this. Post-soul politics. But then on the other hand is the position I'm going to defend. It's called neo-soul politics. Okay? So my argument is going to be, look, post-soul politics is a step in the right direction, right? For generating innovation and openness to new possibilities and potentialities for black people who are engaging in social reform. Okay? But I think that it oversteps. It oversteps. And for reasons that I'm going to try to make apparent as I go through with this, I'm going to be like, look, a post-soul politics calls for too much discontinuity, too much of a break from forms of life that we should pass on. It would have us reject the spirit of the civil rights movement and reject the advice of important elders and sages from that movement. Okay? So what I say is what is needed is something called a naturalistic and a disclosive political perspective that doesn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You don't want to throw out the soul or the spirit of the civil rights movement. What you want to do is throw away the tactics of the movement. You still want to win the game with as much fervor as the people who engage in civil rights movement tactics. But you just have to change the tactics. It's not a matter of changing the spirit. It's a matter of redirecting the spirit. And I think that a neo-soul politics is that kind of perspective. Now, I don't know if you know, but the term post-soul was developed by a man, author, filmmaker, journalist. His name is Nelson George. And he basically used the term post-soul to basically refer to the years that immediately followed the civil rights and the Black Power movements, which are called the soul years, or which he refers to as the soul years. Okay? Now, beyond just looking at time, Nelson's analysis, it's a pop culture analysis of this so-called post-soul era. The term can be thought of as a different set of social and political conditions for black people after the civil rights era and their responses to those conditions. Basically, a post-soul politics. So, in the post-soul years, a lot of black people, not all, but a lot of black people began to prosper like they had never done before. So you got black politicians that spring up, pop stars, Michael Jackson, Eddie Murphy, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. A whole bunch of people start to get big money, okay? And they become famous, okay? Richard Pryor. You got business executives who come into the fore. Um, you get college students uh, going to campuses all over America. Black people thriving in ways that they hadn't done before, right? And again, like I said, there were some people even becoming cultural icons, the Jordans, the Jacksons, okay? But most black people were not able to cash in on post-soul opportunities. You did have a lot of people going into the middle class who were black, and they were integrating comfortably into American society. But while that was happening, most blacks were sinking into deep and more deep levels of poverty and dysfunction, right? And both groups, though, regardless if you're black and middle class or black and absolutely poor, both groups were dealing with hostile neoconservative movements that sought to roll back the gains that were established in the civil rights era. So I don't know if you ever heard of this case, but it's called the Regents of the University of California versus Bakke case. Okay? And it basically disputed or contested the constitutionality of affirmative action policy. Okay? And it's a perfect example of the kind of challenges that post-soul black folks would have to face as the result of neoconservative political, discourse. But to make matters worse, America, as it was becoming more integrated, it was becoming less industrialized. And the structural effects of deindustrialization would prove devastating to African Americans, especially African American men. A lot of these guys went straight out of high school to industrial jobs where they could make a living wage and raise a family. All those jobs would being outsourced, mechanized, or they were just evaporating altogether. Okay? So you got these African Americans who, after the civil rights years, found themselves in decaying urban environments. Okay? So the financial progress and integration in middle class blacks achieved on professional fronts was being challenged by affirmative action, and the growing poverty and dysfunction for the black masses through deindustrialization was reaching a fever pitch. So then you get a new generation of urban youth who could voice their opposition to their circumstances through strange and innovative art forms such as graffiti and hip hop, right? So this brother right here, I had him on the show before, or I discussed him, not on the show, but I had him in a presentation that I gave about feminism, because he is a black male feminist. But he's also an African American studies professor at Duke University. So he's written books on hip hop. So one of the things that he wrote was a book called Soul Babies: Black Popular Culture and the Post-Soul Aesthetic. And basically, Mark Anthony Neal is his name, and he describes hip-hop as the ideal way, the conduit for the inner rage of displaced, disadvantaged, and miseducated urban masses, as well as the embryonic musings of an urban-defined, college-age, burgeoning, post-soul intelligentsia. Those are his own words. The ideal conduit for the inner rage of displaced, disadvantaged, and miseducated urban masses, as well as the embryonic political musings of an urban-defined, college-age, burgeoning, post-soul intelligentsia. Now I'm saying, like, okay, man, whether you agree with this guy or not, about the emancipatory potential of hip-hop. We had a conversation about hip-hop yesterday. I had Dr. Neal on, I had Dr. Tiosan Johnson on, I had Marcus Aurelius on, and a whole host of other people. We had a conversation about hip-hop. All right? But whether you agree with what Neal says about hip-hop or its influence on a new generation of black intellectuals, it has to be noted that the values and worldview of this new hip hop or post soul generation, they vary differently from the values and the worldview of the generation before it. It's different. I mean, you have to admit that. We're not the same. Like, we don't even have the same values exposed or exposited in the music. Like, do you remember like Sugar Pie, Honey Bun, and all that kind of stuff, and Kiss You, Love You, Baby, all that kind of music? You don't hear that anymore. And there are different reasons for why you don't hear that, but the way the music sounds is different. Everything is different. Okay. But anyway, getting back to it, man. This difference in outlook, values, and experiences, it basically has created a fissure. And there was a young guy who came on the show yesterday, and he was like, "Look, you old dudes, we don't really like, we can't identify with you. Like, we're 20 years old now. You know, you're older, you're 40 in your 40s and 50s. We have no reason to listen to y'all now." And I'm like, okay, all right. But there's a fissure, there's a growing gap between people from the civil rights era or before it and people after it. All right. And it's the importance of this, it has to be understood. It can't be underemphasized. Because the kids from who, the civil rights era, they regard it as a romantic event and a nostalgic event that has to be revered and emulated. But the post-soul generation views it as a stumbling block that stifles innovative rage and, or rage-inspired forms of social criticism and activism. So, for the most part, look, I agree. Post-soul politics is an important examination, and it's an important critical evaluation of the structural conditions for blacks after the civil rights era. It is. But this is an academic term I'm just introducing to you. It is a critical perspective that basically unfolded out of a unique set of circumstances. It's the political orientation of a new generation of blacks that are seeking to distance themselves from civil rights nostalgia and tropes. And most importantly, it seeks to avoid the pitfalls of what is called black piety, right? And the politics of racial custodialism. I talked about this, right, on several of my shows. The idea of racial custodialism is the idea that there is a certain group of leaders who's supposed to take the reins of government and steer it forever. Post-soul politics basically says, no, you don't get to steer this behemoth, or you don't get to steer the black community forever. You're old. Your ideals are old. It's time for you to get out of there, right? Now, I agree with it. We do need a change, okay? So what I want to do is I want to critique that, though. I want to cast it in the best light possible, post-soul politics, but I have to say it's insufficient because it creates too much discontinuity in the forms of life we should pass on. You can't create a hard and fast break with the civil rights movement and the energy, but we need new tactics, okay? Now, there's also a brother who talks about post-soul politics. His name is Eddie Glaude Jr. or Eddie Glaude, okay? And Mark Anthony Neal and Eddie Glaude Jr. basically say, look, this reverence of the black freedom fighters of the civil rights movement will have black social critics and potential new black leaders look backwards rather than forward. And it prevents black social critics from taking stock of their current political inventory. And I agree. So what black piety does, so I talked about it, you got black piety and black racial custodialism. So what black piety does, it emphasizes voting. It urges for complacent comportment around authoritative whites, like don't move suddenly in front of the white policeman. Right? And it basically says constrain your political choices and your political expressions. You see a lot of this still in place, right? The overemphasis of voting, right? Over and over again, you hear this, right? So for the PSP social critic, which is it's an acronym for post-soul politics, the PSP social critic has to be able to show to black folks that democratic participation doesn't entail sacrifice, struggle, loss, self-abnegation, humiliation. That's not what it requires, right? As the civil rights movement traditionally defined it as. So political progress in the civil rights movement was about loss, being, putting your body up to be hurt, being a pacifist, that's that kind of thing. Okay? So the new black social critic, they say, shows how democratic participation can bring about the release of domination and oppression through angry, unflinching self-expression. In other words, we ain't no punks. You heard this said, we are not our ancestors. You've heard that terminology before. Like we ain't gonna take what they took. Okay. As if they were just all laid down and with some punks or some wimps. I don't think that's the case. But if that's how you think, run with it. But anyway, they basically say, look, you got young blacks who are rage-filled, and their goal should be to channel this rage in ways that break from older liberation movements. And to some degree, I do. To some degree, I agree. Okay. And also, what post-soul politics calls for is to make sure that new black leaders should be aware that the civil rights leaders of the past, including their friends, relatives, close associates, so on and so forth, they're not the best pool of candidates from which to draw tomorrow's effective black leaders. Because all too often what these people are going to do is basically concretize political stratification, meaning they're going to, hold on to power, and they're going to reinforce non-participation by other black folks. You see this all the time in politics. They become pious political experts working in behalf of the black masses instead of with the black masses. So instead of encouraging a thriving, angry, and active black public sphere, they adopt a pacifist top-down leadership model. So as a result, these black political elites either intentionally or unwittingly endorse and promote the politics of racial custodialism. And this style of politics is anachronistic. It discourages deliberation, contestation, and political capacity development. It does. So racial custodial politics fails adequately to meet the demands of democratic accountability, as you got these self-aggrandizing, self-appointed black leaders, and they take on these messianic roles, like they're going to save us. And it leaves them beyond reproach. You can't tell them anything. Who can tell Maxine Waters anything? Who's going to tell, Clyburn anything? Who's going to tell Barbara Jordan something? So anyway, man, to sum all this up, the people who push post-soul politics argue the civil rights leaders who've made a great deal of emancipatory progress under older political paradigms, they should be proud of what they did. But it's now time to pass the torch. As time moves on and the people who were part of the civil rights movement die, the nostalgia for the movement will fade. But at this very moment, African Americans have to prepare themselves to take on the challenges imposed by new forms of racism. And I agree with that. but only on their own terms and through their own understanding, right, of their experiences and their political agency. So I agree with this to some degree. And look, all I'm saying is post-soul politics has virtues, but it also has vices. And I'm going to explain to you why. Okay? I'm going to explain to you why. So, but I'm going to explain to you after I take a break because I've said a lot. And what I want to do is come back and get myself reconnected and resituated. So let's take a quick break for about a minute or so. And then when I come back, I'll explain to you why I think a post-soul politics breaks too much off apart from the civil rights movement and how it goes too far. So I'll be right back in a second. The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. Sauna G with a PhD. You tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. This is a place where black men can express themselves freely. That's why I put out that disclaimer. And so I'd like to thank Jerome Bostic for his generous contribution. Thank you so much, sir, on the Cash App. Again, this is an independent operation. If you like the content here and you want to see the channel grow, and if you want me to continue to be in the position to provide you with content, please make a contribution to the Green Gorilla channel. If you're out there in listening land, let me do this. I'm going to put on another commercial so you can understand what I'm talking about. The content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you. Yeah, that's all I'm talking about, man. You know, like the video, share the video, hit the subscribe button. I mean, how much does a damn like cost? You know, doesn't cost a lot, man. All you got to do is hit the like button, the thumbs up, man. Share the video if you like the content. Share it. Don't covet it. Don't protect it. Like the parable of talents, don't bury it in the ground. Share it. Expose it. So at any rate, what we're doing is we're having a discussion about black politics and what direction it should move in. So I told you there's two trajectories. You got a post-soul politics and a neo-soul politics. Now what I'm going to do is give my version of a critique of post-soul politics. And I'm going to tell you why I have I'm not going to say an aversion to it, but why I'm hesitant to fall deeply into its clutches. So let me do that now. Look, again, a post-soul politics has virtues, but it also has vices. It's critical of the civil rights movement, but to me, it's up to the point of being blatantly disrespectful of the civil rights movement's participants. I agree. Black piety, and racial custodialism, or the politics of racial custodialism, they are problems. Okay, they are. But a post-soul politics, especially as it pretends to be influenced by rage and nihilism, that's supposed to have given birth to hip hop, graffiti, and what I call New Jack scholarship, that's even more problematic. And I say it's problematic because it's basically informed, it's encoded, it's influenced by vulgar subjectivism and consumer materialism. Now, what do I mean by vulgar subjectivism? It just means narcissism. Me, and gross consumer materialism. Look, some people think they can buy their way out of happiness. They got a new car, they feel happy momentarily, but shit, then all of your problems resurface. If you got a screwed up social life, it's going to be screwed up if you got a Lexus or a Benz. It's going to be screwed up if you live in a house and your relationship ain't right with the woman you with. It's going to be fucked up even if you live in a mansion with a yacht. So, in other words, what I'm saying is post-soul politics and the blacks who subscribe to it are more interested in receiving a piece of the American pie and achieving big willie status within the current structure than they are in transforming that structure so as to have it come into accord with inclusive and participative democratic ideals. So, I mean, most kids in this culture, post-soul culture, they want to blow up like Jay-Z and Diddy and Guwap and Jeezy. They want to move on up like the Jeffersons, but their post-soul perspective is lacking something. And if I had to put it in concrete terms, and there are reasons for this beyond just political affiliation, but look, today, it's not enough of us knowledgeable, erudite, and courageous and revolutionary like the people in the civil rights movement. Now, you can talk about Black Lives Matter. Those are flashes of it. But you got to understand the civil rights movement was more than just people going out in the streets. They were really organized. These kids had real organizations that they ran themselves. We don't study. We not organized like they were. That's why we fall for the banana in the tailpipe, even though they fell for it. We doubly fall for it because we're not organized at all. But I don't want to digress too far. What I want to say is, man, you had even little kids, man, who were involved in organizing during the civil rights movement. But today, I mean, look, what's the going thing for a young kid today to do? I know you had Black Lives Matter, but come on, man. What are we doing? What are our kids doing today versus what the kids were doing in the 50s and the 60s? Look, man, we watch too much TV. We play too many games. We surf the internet too much, man. And we're not oriented towards justice the way these people in the past were. We need to get back on track with that. We're enthralled by the media and lulled to sleep by consumer and hip hop culture, just like, our kids are. So what I basically say is the problem is not to find a way to get past the soul years, but to find a way to get our soul back. To reinvent and recenter our soul, not abandon it. We need a soul makeover, a neo-soul politics that can help us deal with our crisis. Not a post-soul politics that's just built and based on anger, nihilism, and what's cool to buy. Let me cop that. Let me get them Jordans. Fuck them Jordans. And so what I say is, look, the black public is incoherent, meaning it doesn't have a form now. We don't know where we are now. And there's a whole bunch of factors or reasons why that's the case. I'm not going to talk about all of them now. But we need to have a neo-soul politics that will help us begin to find ourselves and address our needs again. Now, I'll have to say, there's two ways for us to engage in neo-soul politics. You got to take a naturalistic turn, and we got to take a disclosive turn in order to do it. And that's why I got to leave you off for my next show. I got to leave that because if I start covering it now, it'll take another hour and a half. And I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time to do it tonight. But I will open up the lines because we're at the hour and 10-minute mark. So I'll open it up for some questions. If you got any questions to ask me, you got any comments to make, you can. And I'm going to give you a break. Again. And then I'm going to come back. So if you got any questions about what I said, you could ask. If not, I'm about to sign up on out of here, and I'll see y'all the next time. I'll holler at y'all on Thursday. But Thursday, I'm not going to talk about this. Thursday, I'm going to talk about whether or not there actually is a black matriarchy. Whether or not there actually is a gynocracy. So, and I'm going to be using a scholar in order to try to figure that out. So, one more break, and then we'll come back. If you got any questions, you could ask me. If not, I'm out of here. So the next time I come on, I'm going to have a conversation about the black matriarchy. But right now we're talking about post-soul politics and neo-soul politics. And some people say we don't need to be political at all. What we need to do is engage in business. So like Brother Jason Watkins here says, business is the answer, not politics. And then my answer is, man, business is a part of politics. Bottom line, in America, business is married to politics. They call it supply side economics, man. This is a dollarocracy where businesses buy politicians. It's mixed. It's married in this culture. But it just so happens that black people don't have capital in order to buy politicians. But they are intertwined. Okay? And so Ram Tuff says we need a code of conduct for black people. I agree, but what's that code of conduct going to be? We're not even organized. We're living like individuals. You know? If you got any questions, now's the time to ask it. I mean, I see a lot of people making comments, but I see a lot of people making comments, but nobody's actually asking a question. He says business itself is a political perspective. Yeah, I agree with that. I see we got one caller on, one taker. Oh man, Friday, you got a background hum going, bro. Man, Friday, you got some bad background hum, man. Yeah, I'm gonna give him a minute to see if he wants to come back with that. But I'm trying to answer some of your questions and see if I could make sense of what it is you're trying to articulate here. Do black men need to separate and come up with an agenda? I think so. Black men should have their own. There never should be a time where black men can't get together and convene and develop an agenda for themselves. Everybody else does it. Black women do it. Why should we not do it? At some point, we need to try to find a way to reconcile with other elements of our community, provided they want to cooperate. But if they don't want to cooperate, leave them to their own devices. So I guess Man Friday's not going to come back. Maybe he's trying, maybe he's not. But he says, do you think voting makes a difference? This is CJ Gassam. Or should black people say F the system and figure out alternative avenues of going to Africa to start in a place where people don't have as much ingrained here? Hate. So, look, I've answered this question on numerous occasions. I would encourage you to go check out my video on Pan-Africanism. Also, I did several videos on democracy, CJ Gassam. But ultimately, I don't think that voting is democracy. I think voting is one process in a constellation of processes related to democracy. But it's the minimum you could do to be involved in the political process. The bare minimum. Okay? But in terms of going to Africa, man, you're not going to get black people to get on and go to Africa. It's not going to happen, man. And then you get there, then what? I think black people should be forming alliances with Africans. And if they want to go there individually, they can. But a mass exodus, man, I don't see that happening. I'm sorry. I just don't see it happening. So, yeah, check those videos out, CJ, and get back with me when you see them and tell me what you think about it. But yeah, man, I think I'm about to turn it in if Man Friday don't hurry up and get it together. Firebrand, okay, it's come to the mic. Firebrand, what's going on with you, bruh?
What's going on,
Hey, how are you, sir?
Mr. Bill? Okay, you know what? I finally got on here where you can actually hear me. I just wanted to tell you real quick. I love your show, and I'm gonna try to do everything I can to support it. But in regards to one of the people in your panel was saying that should black men have their own agenda? I 1,000% agree. I think that is imperative that we have our own agenda because you can look at even legal statistics. Like I was looking, for example, I'm working on a digital marketing company, and if you go and you look at the Small Business Association statistics, I mean, they break things down based on race and gender and things like that. And one of the things I noticed is that in the black community, 60% of the black-owned businesses are owned by black women, but the businesses owned by men are perform better and do better in sales. So we need to make sure that we advance ourselves and work with each other to get it done because nobody else does it. There's no institutions that's out that to help us. Actually, there's more institutions working adversarial to this whole idea of us having our own spaces. I mean, you can see some of these other male YouTubers, black male YouTubers that are being deplatformed by private platforms and everything else like that. So it's like, you know what? If we want to advance and do things that are in our own interest, we have to do it ourselves, and we have to align with at least a common ground there. We don't have to agree on everything, but we definitely have to align on the idea of being able to prosper as this specific demographic that we're in.
Yeah, I agree that black men need to have their own agenda. They need to have spaces where they can convene and discuss issues that are germane to them, and be
Absolutely.
be damned about what other people think about it. Be damned if people say it's patriarchal or that it's oppressive
Misogyny.
and yeah, that it's misogynistic. Because if women have their own spaces and they can discuss and talk about their own issues and consciousness raised related to their own experiences, then to ask for black men not to have that when we suffer from some of the most vile kinds of oppression and domination, then I mean, if we can't do it, then no one ought to be able to do it. And
Yeah,
if people,
exactly.
if we get deplatformed, that is political oppression, and
Yep,
we need to start
absolutely.
characterizing it in those terms. If
Yep.
if Google or any other platform deplatforms black men, among the most oppressed demographic in the country, that's sending a signal to us. We need to start talking to the Anti-Defamation League with the Jews and asking them to give us some counsel.
Yeah,
Even though
ask Donovan Sharp. Ask Donovan Sharp about that. He'll tell you.
yeah,
He's
I
been
mean,
deplatformed. Tommy Sotomayor. How many YouTube channels did he have to make? He's had petitions on change.org against him, started by black women.
yeah, you know what? These women can have all of the change.org programs they want, but in reality, if you stop the voice of black men, you are engaged in an anti-democratic project.
Absolutely.
Bottom
Absolutely.
line. And
That's
there's
pure
no way you're gonna.
censorship.
That's censorship. It's against the First Amendment, and we are one of the most oppressed groups in the country, the most incarcerated, die the earliest, right? Get killed the most extrajudicially, get killed the most from homicide, got the worst educational outcomes.
Absolutely.
No,
And that's
there's
what
no
gets
way.
me too.
There's no way in God's green earth anyone should ever be seeking, and especially black women. They got the last nerve. Them boy, don't let me get started, man, because I'm about to say some words. Don't let me start saying the words, because I'm gonna start saying them, man.
Yeah.
Because them
Well,
motherfuckers, the last motherfuckers that need to start talking about black men need to be deplatformed. Because
yep.
their
And
whole
you know what?
program is predicated upon some shit that started off from racism anyway. Because white
Yep.
feminism is deeply rooted in white
Yes.
racism, and then they take
Yep.
it on and use it against black
Yes.
men. That's
Yes. They've been
that's the
doing it for the
biggest
longest
Jedi
time.
mind trick and gaslighting game on the planet, man.
Yep.
No.
And you know something? And you want to know something else too? What gets me about it is this whole idea of black patriarchy. Okay, we don't have real black patriarchy. Black community. Black community is primarily controlled by women. What we really have is a gynocracy, and the proof of that is I sit there and say I mean a lot of I know you and everybody else included have been in arguments with people, and unfortunately some black men who are cucked out, who are they got the feminized mentality, single mother mentality, and they're on there trying to shame other black men. But the reality is, I always say to them, I said, listen, how the hell do you have black men oppressing you? Black men ain't been able to oppress you since 1619 when we got here. We've never been in control of anything. We don't own anything. We have not written not one law in the books in this country's history. We have not had that privilege or that power to do that. How can you take a demographic of men who have the highest unemployment rate, have the highest illiteracy rate, the highest incarceration rate, most killed by police, among other things, and then say, you guys are oppressing us. What are we oppressing you with? You can call police on us just as fast as a white woman can. So,
Exactly.
I mean, where does this oppression come from?
All of their talking points are nothing more than Xerox copies of white feminist talking points. They have been able to utilize every tool developed by white women, which the ascendancy of white women in and of itself was a political means by which to check the ascendancy of black men. That's all it was.
Absolutely.
That it was
and they're mad.
Nothing more than that. You know what they want to admit
to? And you know what they don't want to admit to? The suffragettes are still mad, at least from an extension period, from a cultural and a historical perpetuation of the fact that black men got the right to vote before they did. But the reason that is because we picked up a rifle and fought in every war in this history's country's history, and still got treated less than human. That's the only reason why. But then you know what? They're like, okay, we're gonna use your women so we can build up our numbers, Throw them a couple of, they can take a couple more crumbs, or they think they get a big piece of chicken off a master stable. And then you sit there and tell them, well, Sister Shahrazad Ali have been talking about that for years, about how that basically white supremacy ideology is to convince black women they're better than their own men. And by and large, they bought into it. And this is why we got what we got now. And plus, by the government financing it, because Tommy Sotomayor, one of the things you always called that black women were state-sponsored terrorists in their own community, basically saying that they're getting money from the white system to be irresponsible, to in essence destroy their own community and continue to perpetuate the dysfunction of, I can have as many kids by as many dudes as I want. Doesn't matter about the fathers, because if he doesn't pay, the state will pick up the tab and then come after him when he can't pay. And then you know what I'll do? I'll turn around here and I'll move another different Negro in here who potentially ain't even the father's kid. Keep the biological father of the kids I have from being able to even spend time with those kids, and have some new dude in here who she don't know, who very well could be abusing the kids, molesting them, and everything else. And then you ask, why do we got what we got right now in the black community? Then you ask why. Why is it that? And then you know what? When you ask them why, they'll say because there's no fathers. Will be the first thing that they'll say. But when it comes down to breaking down the reasons why, they're in full denial. Oh, it's not that. It's everything else.
But you know what? Look, so all I'm saying is black men, they have a voice. They just need to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And be to hell, like, you got too many people who already started this trend. It's no turning it back now. Then you even got academicians on the trend now. This thing is building up steam. Now it's gonna be a whole bunch of guys who cucked out, who will never get it. They're gonna stay blue pill. Let them stay blue pill, man. Let them stay on the plantation. If they want to stay on the plant, always been that way. It's always gonna be that way.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, if these men, if they feel like the only way that they can come into anything is by kissing a woman's ass, or kissing their mama's ass, or kissing their sister's ass, their auntie's ass, their cousin's ass. If that's the only way that they feel like they can have some semblance of comeuppance, then let them be on their own, man. Let them be on their own.
I feel like we need to operate kind of like, I'll use an example, kind of like the Italian mob. I was watching an interview with Michael Franzese. You heard of him, I think, right? He used to be a former capo for the Colombo family. He does a lot of interviews and stuff like that. And one of the things that they were talking about is that what they do in a lot of cases is that they do business with each other. So if you have a business, say, for example, and I have a business, and we in our business, and say, for example, you need a supplier, you come to me to buy, say, for example, you have a grocery store, right? And maybe I have a chicken supply, something like that. You might need chickens for your store, so you'll buy the chickens from me. So basically, we'll both make money with each other that way.
Okay.
You need to start thinking like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, brother, for coming in and contributing, man. I'm gonna get on to the next person, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I got a guy, man, in here, man, says we aren't African. Y'all always call out black feminism for spouting white Jewish, teaching you go back to Africa. Niggas are the same. We were in America before. Hey, man, I don't know who you are, but I ain't never seen you in here before. You can get the fuck off my channel with that bullshit. I'll holler at you. Bye. Rap to you. See you. Wouldn't want to be you. You got a problem with it, come meet me in Texas. I don't play them games. Don't get on my channel, man, disrespecting people on it in the chat, acting all ignorant and rambunctious in the comment section. We don't do that around here. You got a problem with me, you can come see me. I do MMA or whatever the case may be. You anything you want to beat me in. Tiddlywinks, I'll probably beat you in that too. Fuck out of here with that bullshit. I don't play them games. Man Friday, what's good with you, brother? How you doing? You got the mic right?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, so I had to change the microphone. That one was whack. Blessed to be on the show, bro. Appreciate it. Interesting discussion, you know?
Yeah, good to have you back.
Yeah. So my take on, what you had to say in the discussion is that I think we need to take a look at the landscape honestly and see who's the movers and the shakers at the moment if it comes to black politics. And I got the impression from what you were saying that you felt that uh, politics was going to engender black folk with, it's going to empower black people basically. And I differ to that slightly. Politics is important. We see what's happening now in the US elections. I'm of the opinion that what black people would need is a new cultural paradigm. I think what's happening in the 60s and what you were talking about before, we refer to it now as civil rights. But what happened is that the icons of the era, engendered the young people, the students, and the children to change their mindset. They had more pride in themselves and their communities, and they had a collective identity, and they were unified in that. I think that is what would be necessary for black folks to engender some kind of change. I don't think it will come from the politics from on high.
Well,
I know
politics
you.
doesn't. Well, look, politics doesn't come from on high. See, this is what people don't understand. Like what we're doing now, to some degree, is politics. Do you get what I'm saying, man? Friday.
To me,
Like
what we're not doing. To me, this is not politics. To me, this is grassroots discussion.
to me,
To,
grassroots discussion is politics. That's how I define politics.
well, politicians don't see it that way. Politicians pass the bag, they pass brown envelopes, and they get positions of power like Kamala Harris, and they
That's not
navigate their.
Those people
Yeah,
on
they
politics.
call themselves politicians.
That's what they call themselves, but they're not engaged in politics.
Okay.
That's a
Well.
man. That's a managerial class of
Mm,
elite people who
mhm.
basically mismanage. They're supposed to be a managerial class. I call them the mismanagerial class.
It's
They're,
true.
these people aren't looking out for the interest of the larger group of citizens. They're
That's
trying
true.
to get elected, and they're doing what they got to do in the game in order
That's
to
true.
play the game.
That's
And
true.
the game is money and getting elected. And in order to get elected, you got to raise a certain amount of money. If you don't have a certain amount of money, you don't even get any support.
Hmm. I mean, what
Then
you're
when you
saying is.
get there, it's all about corporate. It's all about corporations and lobbyists.
Mhm.
Half of these politicians don't even draft legislation.
But that's
Lobbyists
the.
draft
Well,
the legislation for them. So that's not
well.
politics. Look, I've given too many
Mhm.
lectures. I've had too many shows. Look, here's the deal, man. I said this before, I'll say it again. You can't, you can be inside of a political body, but still not be able to influence it. It's called internal exclusion. I did a whole show about this, right? Where I talked about deliberative democracy in relation to market-based concepts of democracy, and then I went on to tell you, I went on to try to give an outline of various deliberative democratic theories. I talked about Amy Gutman and Dennis Thompson. I talked about a woman named Iris Young. And then lastly, I talked about a man named John Dryzek. Okay? Now, these are preeminent deliberative democratic theorists. Okay? Now, trying to get in the office and trying to play the game inside is not going to work. Because you can be there, but you'll be a token there. So the best place to do politics is outside in the civil or the public sphere. That's the place where politics can get done for us. That's where we're going to have the most leverage, not inside a political body, not going to get some guy to sign up to be on, to be on a political ballot. That's not going to work. You got to influence public opinion. That's what you have to do.
I
So,
agree.
so
But when.
I'm not.
Mhm.
Go ahead, man.
But when you say influence in public opinion, those uh, managerial class you're talking about, they actually get the opportunity to make the legislation. We don't. So it's good for you to say that, and we can say that they're not legitimate. We can say that they're off center. We can say that they're corrupt. It doesn't matter what we say. They signed the papers. That's why I say, in my opinion, it's going to have to be cultural and not political, because the political class is debunked. They're illegitimate.
Yeah, but you see, when you call, like, I have a different idea about what politics is. See, in my viewpoint, what we're doing here is political. I even did a show on what feminists think about the personal and the political. I did. I don't know if you recall any of these videos, but so the idea is what we're doing here now is politics
Well, we're gonna
because we're
we could.
developing ideologies, we're developing ideals, values, culture.
Well, exactly. We have that's what I'm talking about. But we could go basically what we're saying, and we've got a difference of opinion as to the term. You're calling this politics, and I'm not calling it. But that's it. Apart from that, we don't have an issue.
I don't
What
think
you
so.
choose to call politics, I don't call this politics. I call this grassroots discussion. I'll tell you why. Because we don't have any political clout here. This is talk between us in the manosphere. Or this nobody know. We haven't got any sway with the African government or with the in Washington or in London. We don't have that. That's why I put it in a separate class. And it also the people who they do give to talk for us, they're not politicians either. They use what I would call the minstrel class, which is entertainments, because entertainers now what they use to speak for people like I don't know LeBron James or I forget what I don't listen to them, but that type of stuff. Yeah, so they give them a voice to change our perspective, our mind state, but we should keep control of that. And we should have a value system myself. You're saying it's political. I don't say it's political. I'm saying it's cultural. Because when I look at the successes of the past, they were, I'm talking about with regards to black people, they were cultural. They weren't political. I don't consider, you call the civil rights era, say because they got laws passed. But before they got laws, they was in the street. They was in the street
So look,
getting,
let me just say this because I don't want to get caught into this too long. I agree
okay.
with what you're saying. I think I expand the notion of what political is above and beyond that of what takes place in formal political institutions. I don't think anything actually political goes on there. I mean, they have their own brand of politics, but to me, that's not where black people are going to gain the most, you know, momentum in
Mhm.
order to do anything. It's voting
So then
in
what is
electoral politics. Wait a minute. Voting in electoral politics to me is minuscule as it pertains to being self-governing and autonomous within the confines of Western democratic or Western, capitalist societies.
good?
Bottom line. So I,
Good.
I don't want to. Yeah, but I got somebody else I need to get to, man. Friday.
Oh, fair enough.
Thank you,
No
my
problem.
brother. I
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll
appreciate you
speak
coming on the
later.
show. All right now.
All right, blessed.
So, brother Randall,
How you doing? How you doing?
hey, what's going on, man? St.
I
Louis, ain't you?
yes, North County, man.
What's going on, man? How you doing, brother?
Pretty good, pretty good. I was looking over the election data, and one of the things that I pulled, Georgia went blue, but the reason, I guess, Stacey Abrams did a good job in getting the black vote out, and one of the things that I noticed is that black people are reaching that inflection point in Georgia where they'll eventually become the majority, and just I listened to a couple podcasts that were talking about it, and I guess what are the consequences of black people become being a majority in a state, and how could that affect the black status in America?
I personally don't think it will. I mean, what's the use of having black people in a Western capitalist system that they're a minority in? Because even if they control an entire state, I mean, you've already seen black people mismanage entire cities.
Is are those politicians, those black politicians, representing black interests or Democratic Party interests?
For the most part, if you are part of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, you have to serve that party's interests.
Do you think that by being a majority in a state that would be the enough ground to start your own political party within the safe playground of a state, not affected by federal politics?
Man, ultimately, what I think is this: I think that every state has imperatives. Okay? You have economic imperatives, you have security imperatives, both external and internal, and you have management imperatives. Those are going to be the same no matter who's at the helm, no matter what color skin they have. And it just so happens that within the confines of the United States and the kind of political environment that exists here, you have to have a lot of money to play the game as a politician at the state or at the federal level. Okay? It's a big money game. If you don't have the money, you can't play it. Also, the state of Georgia, like, do you mean like the city of Atlanta, the entirety of Georgia? You think the entirety of Georgia is now becoming overwhelmingly black?
So there is so while white people as a whole still have more, um, the minority share of that will be majority. The minorities will be the majority, with blacks being the largest majority. The actual full black being the full minority is probably 2030, but there's white people are having like a demographic collapse there, people moving.
So this is what I say, man. Look, right now, Georgia has 60% is 60% white. Okay? Black people right now in Georgia are like somewhere around 32%. So you saying in 10 years, all those 60% of white people, like the percentage of black people is going to double and rise to that of white. Who's
Not double.
projecting that? Who's arguing that in 2030 Georgia will be predominantly black? I just want to know. Cite me some articles. Like give me some literature so that I can determine that that's actually going to be the case. Now, you got a large amount of black people, maybe double that of the average, in various cities across the Americas, okay, or the United States. But they're only 30% of that population. By 2030, you're saying that they're going to be on par with that of white folks? They're going to be a parity with white people. So meaning that they're going to be able to control and have dominion over a political system. Look, let me just say this. Let me ask you a question. Let me turn this around. All right? Who's got the money in the United States?
By race, white people.
White folks. Okay? Who's got control over the military in this country?
More or less white people.
White folks. Let's say, for example, one day, just miraculously, black people begin to get their stuff together and they become unified. And they grow in numbers such that they can now have more numbers than white people in the entirety of the United States. What do you think will happen?
Will white people see this happening? I mean, or just one day?
It doesn't matter if they see it or don't, because they're already watching. White people have been watching black people closely for centuries.
Well, I've been following the Hispanics right now, and there's a lot of talk about trying to cut off illegal immigration, and I get the sense that that's like dog whistling for that issue.
To some degree, it is. But think about this. I just want you to think about this. Just think about it. Now, this is all conjecture. But do you think, first of all, the United States is one of the most heavily armed and militarized countries in the world? Is it not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Do you think the European powers are going to allow a group of Negroes who they think, or Hispanics, or anyone, any demographic ever, to all of a sudden, fairly and squarely, because they have more numbers, which we don't, but if we did, all of a sudden we're going to get a hold of all of the guns, the ballistics, nuclear weapons, fighter planes, all of this, all of the technology, we're going to all of a sudden have control over it because we're the majority. And we get to dispose of it how we wish. You think that's going to happen?
No. We'd have to
I
earn that.
don't think it's going to happen either. I'm just being honest.
Now,
I
I
don't
don't
think.
think so. For instance, say Georgia has more, I don't think they would destroy their system in order to stop us. I think they would try and make sure it happens as gradually as possible and not a complete collapse. Now,
So my viewpoint is my viewpoint is this. I'm just being honest. This is a white nation, and it always has been, and for the most part, unless there's a serious change of culture in the United States, it always will be. So, I mean, ultimately, the only thing I'm saying is, look, just because you put a black person into a position that was once held by a white person doesn't mean you're changing the system. If the system is already fucked up, you can put a black person into the system. Does that mean that the system all of a sudden is going to rectify itself? I don't see it happening. You can put a black person into a political position, they'll be just as adamant at locking a motherfucker up as a white person. We seen that with Kamala Harris. You could put a black person as the chief of police in a city or a municipality, he will do more harm than a white boy. So it doesn't matter the color, you got to have the person with the right value system in the office. It doesn't matter how many Negroes you got. You can have 1,000,000 Negroes in in positions. And if they're not working to the advantage of people who are black and don't have the right value system, it's pointless.
that's the thing I was getting about having this sort of like echo chamber, and it's not echo chamber, but just a way that we could express our political needs in an area isolated or where white people are irrelevant, and then it's kind of like how
Well,
domestic policy is separate from foreign policy in the United States.
see,
And
my whole thinking is, and I'm not trying to knock any group of people, man. Like, people are supposed to jockey for power. They got us realize, basically thinking that as being aspirational for control and power and autonomy is somehow vicious. That's the first thing they do is they make you docile, and they tell you that having aspirations to be in control or to be empowered is somehow wrong. It's not Christian like or something like that, right? Because these people, let me tell you, watch what they do. Don't listen to what they say. Watch what they do. Watch what they do. How did they get this country? Did they take it through democratic means, or did they come and they just snatch it? What did they do?
they saw a country that was ill defended, and they knew that they could take it, so they took it.
They
Might is
took
right.
it.
Might is
They
right.
took it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm listening. Can you hear
Might
me?
is right. Yeah, might is right.
They took it. This is the game we're playing, man. Like, these people set up all this fairness, the rules of fairness, after they already took it by force. But we're supposed to make pretend and believe that didn't actually happen anymore. Now we got to play by all the rules of property. They didn't play by the property rules when they had the opportunity to take it. And so all I'm saying is these people speak with forked tongues, man. Be careful. You know?
Have you seen that scene in Trick Daddy where he explains, the conservative wants to keep black people out, but then the liberals like, you can't let the smart ones, you can't keep the smart ones out. You have to put them in your system so they extol your values.
Exactly. I mean, look, if they educate you, if they make you one of theirs, and look, black people fall for this banana in the tailpipe all the time. You got a bunch of people, black people in politics, man. Let's be frank about it, man. Let's stop sugarcoating it. Man, them a lot of house niggas, man. Let's just be real about it, man. You got a lot of house niggas in politics, man. They play the game, man. They're not bucking up against the system, man. They're part of the establishment. Let's just be real about this, man.
Yeah.
Can we be real about this?
Yeah, I listen. I've listened to. I know exactly what. I mean, I think Malcolm X thought the whole Martin Luther King's side of the civil rights movement was that sort of pacifist, you know,
And there's
trying to
nothing
work
wrong.
within the system.
Look, you don't have to actually be militaristic in order to be political, but you can be. So what
But
I
you,
don't do, see me, I'm like this. I'm one individual. I don't have all the answers, but when I convene with other people who have my own, like who share the interests that I have, who share the values that I do, we convene, we deliberate, we make a plan of action, and we go with it. If it works, fine, great planning. If it doesn't, well, shit, we got to get back, deliberate again, and go back to the drawing board. But I believe in democracy. Some people don't. Some people believe in aristocracy. Some people believe in plutocracy. Some people believe in oligarchy. I believe in democracy. I believe in grassroots movements. I believe in empowering people. I don't believe in powering over people. So that's what I believe. And I believe black men need to convene with one another. I don't think we need some charismatic, messianic leader. I think we all need to have rational, cogent conversations, and then we need to develop a plan. To hell with whoever feels any other type of way about it. Those are the type of politics I subscribe to. Now, in reference to the whole Democratic Party, the two-party system in America, I think it's a sham. It's a disgrace. It's political. It's like there's so many books written on this subject matter. I mean, you pick one. Dollarocracy.
a
Go read
duopoly.
that book, huh?
It's a duopoly. Just they're just trading hats.
And I just recently saw a documentary about this. You have to have millions of dollars to run for office. Then when you run for office, you spend all of your time running for office, right? Then when you finally get into office, then you spend half of the time that you should be legislating, raising funds to run for office again.
Yeah.
The system is fucked up. Half the time, these people don't even develop or craft legislation. Lobbyists are drafting the legislation for them. They don't even get half the shit that they pass, they don't even read.
Yeah. It.
So, I mean, we're involved in a system. It's too big. It's too unwieldy, unwieldy. But
You have no
I think you
incentive
can.
to change either. I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's messed up.
So that's what I already said. So, but I got another caller, man, and then after this, I'm about to get out of here. It's almost 2 hours in. So thank you, Randall, for coming in, brother.
All
I
right, thank you.
appreciate your participation, man. Thank you, man. You hear me, Randall?
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you, brother. All right. Well, got Duval here, but he can't get his device right. So anyway, man, look, I appreciate y'all all coming out tonight, man. Sometimes I ramble. Tonight was one of those rambling times because I was fielding a lot of questions and addressing, trying to answer a lot of questions. Maybe I did that articulately. Maybe I didn't do it so articulately. I did the best that I could at it. I'm not perfect, but ultimately, I think we need a neo soul politics. I have to get into the intricacies of what that actually means, but I like post soul politics because it's critical of racial custodial politics, and it's also critical of black piety. The idea that there's some sort of black salvific class of politicians who are going to lead the people out of the chaos of the wilderness, like Moses led the Jews out of the wilderness. It's not a solvent, practical, or cogent political plan. Half of those guys in the Black Congressional Caucus or Congressional Black Caucus, man, those people are ineffective, man. They are token Negroes. And these are the same people that granted white women minority status, even though they're the majority demographic in the United States by number. The CBC. So, at any rate, man, I'm out of here, man. I've been here too long. I appreciate you visiting with me tonight. And I'll be back Thursday. We're going to talk about whether or not there actually is something called the black matriarchy. But I'm gonna read Robert Staples again, man. I don't know if you're gonna like the outcome, but I'm just reading his work, and his work is very interesting, man. So let's hear what he has to say about it, and I would love to hear your responses to this. I'm talking about love it. But having said all that, man, y'all be peaceful, man, and catch y'all later, man. One.
Yeah. I'm a phenomenon, I shine like Orion. I came in a rap gang to smack it up like Heron, transform it like Megatron. Wait, like Yamatron, most rappers are some peons. I'ma starve them like Ramadan, I'm troublesome. You don't really want no troublesome, cause I pop guns like hood chicks do bubble gum. I been dumb, gon' stay that way till kingdom come. When the sun I'm at, unleash a demon, a polygon. I'm heavy, son, got more knowledge than Farrakhan, more gang than Cap. Karma that bishop named Don Juan, stay lit off some Shandon. Maybe Bacardi Ram, stay drink to some Nordstrom. Call me that Dapper Don, more violent than Genghis Khan. The members of Taliban, niggas faker than silicon. Get hit like a .com, like soldiers in Lebanon. I'm bringing that red rum. When I get through with you, son, you gon' think I'll see rap. I carry weight like a heavyweight. Bake more cakes than patty cake. Watch the fiend salivate. You a lightweight, phantom weight. Better contemplate. If you violate, make you levitate to the pearly gates. I fascinate when I conversate from the show me state where these niggas love to hate and hot murder rate. What a waste. But this flow is just a taste of God's grace. Shining this light in the ugly place. In the prophecy, got more wisdom than Socrates. Philosophies, you don't really want no parts of me. Can't you see? I'm slicker than Mephistopheles, stronger than Hercules, more dangerous than the Damocles. The MCs trying me pretty please. I wait up they white tees, knock them out they wallabies. Now they touch my deliries. But coming up short of the little C's when I break out the killer bees. I study music like Ocasio, hit chicks look like Ashanti. When I'm breaking them off, they yell at odd poppy. You rack rappers is sloppy, you can't stop me with that. We can sorry, copy, Maloney. I'm a monster like Frankenstein, rock harder than Palestine. You slams, dropping dimes, a snake and serpentine. Can't stand to see me glow like Nas with his big shine. All you haters cold in it, cold sores need calamine. But my hot shit like red bricks hitting your head. Leave the sour taste up in your mouth like lemon heads, like Simply Red. Wasted some years up in the fans when I touched down. Already red, that gave me head. I got higher vision for higher living. I'm highly driven. I'm acting women like it's some sort of sick religion. Driving an Impala, sitting on it, each 20 inches, and they spinning just like the planets in the solar system.
Black country people, over in Africa, down to America. Black country people, we make all the world go round and around, yes. Black country people, up in Canada, down to Jamaica. Black country people, we make all the world go round and around.